Hello and welcome to Squishy Vision, where I've just finished watching episode 4 of Skeleton Crew. Can't say I remember now. Oh, damn, I got the line wrong. Let's do that bit again, shall we? Hello, welcome to Squishy Vision, where I've just finished watching episode 4 of Skeleton Crew. Can't say I remember no. Attin. Got it that time. Yeah, no, I mean, I loved this episode. It, well, it moved slowly for part of it. So every time I do this stream, I get distracted by something or another. Alexa, volume 0. I get distracted by some placement that I probably should have rejigged before I started the stream. Hello, welcome to Squishy Vision, where I'm reacting to Skeleton Crew episode 4. Can't say I remember no. Attin. Got it that time. I really enjoyed this episode. It was emotional, and that's how you know I'm enjoying a show, where I get teary in my eyes, because I find myself actually caring about these people and how they feel and all that nonsense. I wasn't. There were parts of the whole story of the week part of the episode, namely the bit where they get where they're taken by the natives and their interactions with natives, and that I think was maybe the weakest part of the episode. But the episode has multi elements to it. Just generally, that whole thing was probably not the strongest part of the episode. But I think it took a back seat. I think it's not an issue that it took a back seat. It was just a very interesting premise that only was a canvas, and it's somewhat distracting when that happens, if that kind of makes sense. But there's so much more going for the episode that I don't really think that hugely is an issue. So from the get-go, we've got this initially wait, have they come back to Attin this soon? What could possibly go wrong that they can come back this soon, and we've got still most of the show left to go? And then we realised actually they have, and then there's a slight scary point where I'm like, we haven't done time travel, have we? Because that would have scared me. That would have been a very preemptive jumping of the shark. And then you realise, oh, so those other planets that they seeded as a plot hook in the previous episode, which I didn't take any notice of, and that's maybe slightly on me. But I mean, also credit to the episodes with the series is due. I didn't think they were going to go that direction. They actually end up on one of the other planets that was hooked in the previous episode. And spoiler alert, at the end, it looks like they might very well be jumping between these other lost planets in search for one of them that has the remaining coordinates so they can get back home for which is very it's in some ways it's cringe, because it's very kind of Uncharted. It's very kind of any other an action adventure thing where it's very quest. It's very formulaic quest. It's like, oh, we've got to tick off these boxes in this treasure hunt before we get the final clue. We've got to go to these different things. We've got to do these different levels of this adventure before we get the thing we're looking for. It's very Uncharted. It's very any other pirate archaeological adventure thing, and it's even more video gamey because it's the same thing for every level of having to find the coordinates for the next stage. Basically, you have to go through this level, do the lesson of the week, and the next stage. So it's a bit cringe in its formulaicness, but as I have said repeatedly, what Star Wars does really well is it takes the formulaic, it takes the tropes, it takes the stuff we're used to seeing, and it puts a Star Wars skin on it, but doesn't change too much of the formula, and so you can still enjoy it. And given the whole point of this show is, you know, family action adventure in Star Wars space, that's fine. That's what we're going with. And I kind of, part of me was like, oh, is this what's going to be the rest of the series? Part of me was like, this is what's going to be the rest of the series. And I actually was excited because it kind of made me feel like a child again, knowing that we have this very to the point, not overcomplicated, except there is some complications, and I'll get to that in a second, but very to the point action adventure. And that is kind of refreshing in its simplicity. It's very childlike and wondrous. Not that there isn't something else going on. First, we don't know why Attin's so important. We don't know why these planets have been scrubbed off. We don't know why they're being abandoned and forgotten by the rest of the universe, but not entirely. Something is clearly going up with Jod. I don't know how much I believe that he simply got captured. Although, excellent moment, by the way, where they get surrounded by those enemies. And Jod is like, you know, screw it, I can't even be bothered to care. At this point, I'm just going to be like, yeah, shoot me, whatever. And I'm like, that's a big mood. But he has his own kind of thing off screen where he apparently effortlessly buys everyone's freedom. Which is somewhat too convenient. And it might be all there is to it. But his behavior is very interesting because, you know, he says, oh, well, my only motivation here was to save you four. But we know he's like he's out for treasure. But that doesn't mean he can't care about his kids, and he's not doing anything explicitly like evil. He's got his weird, as a shitty figure, he's hitting enough of like conflicting tropes that's actually interesting. He very willingly goes back. I mean, he was reluctant. But he didn't need much convincing to go get SM-33. Like, literally, they were like, go get SM-33 or we will. Their only ultimatum was we would get captured again. Not like, you know, oh, go get SM-33 or we will, like, stop you from leaving on a ship. Like, he could have left and abandoned them. He chose not to. He clearly, you know, was acting as if he was acting in the interest of children who had deliberately, like, not treated him very well. I mean, not saying it's justified or unjustified, but, you know, Fern was like, get off the cockpit. Fern was like, stay on the ship. And then he was still, like, acting like... And it's really interesting because you don't realise that he's actually the adult of their children, and maybe he's an actual adult who understands that children are children and will act in a childish way, and he's just trying to, like, navigate that. But he could have, like, screwed him over so many times. But he's also exuding this really strong sense of just being extremely suspicious. And it's intriguing. It's very intriguing. Like, nothing about his behavior makes me at all believe that it was as simple as him paying a bunch of credits and getting the... And we never see the other side. Both of my YouTube streams are frozen. Okay, they're back. Hopefully nothing cut out because I was making very good points. So yeah, that's interesting. We had loads of cute moments with the kids. Neil and I forget her name now, but the character in this episode who was the daughter of the tribe leader. It wasn't like... It was very kind of base layer, but that's fine. You know, basically her being like, well, you need to be strong and gruff and surviving and blah 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 blah, and he's like, no, I just like this piece is good, and you know, them having a moment and him doing like acts of kindness and not like appealing to her, it was just kind of cute, and then you know, her being like, oh, I've learned a lesson about how kindness is really the strength all along, and it was very like to the point and blunt, and again not very nuanced, but it was adorable. It was cute. I appreciate it, and I really liked the moment between Fern and God, I'm forgetting the name. Uh, what is the name of the kid's person's name? Why am I forgetting the name? Wim. And it was, I really liked the moment where, very natural for a child, Fern gets super frustrated at 33 for not basically being able to explain the stuff about Attin and repeating the phrase, can't say I remember no Attin, and she basically has like a tantrum, but like tantrum in a very, like, I'm not like trying to be like stigmatizing, like, she's a child, it's understandable for having a childhood, and she, you know, she's always presented herself so far in the series as being mature, and I think it's actually very grown up of the show to, like, because normally in like shows like this, the dynamic is you have one grown up kid who's like the most mature of everyone, and they're like meant to be like the figure that everyone's willing to like look up to, but very early on, like the cracks show, and like you realize that actually her being actually trying to act like the leader is her being as immature as Wim is when Wim was trying to be this adventurer, and she's and it takes literally her first real kind of like her leading an expedition of them. Well, not the first, but like she quickly like realizes the reality of the situation that they're in, and is like, oh, I got everyone killed today. This is like way over my head, and you know, she has a very kind of very realistic child reaction to that situation, and Wim, to Wim's credit, was trying to reassure her and be like, you know, he wouldn't have done any better, he probably would have done worse. He didn't like seize the moment. He was actually kind of mature in that moment, being like, you know, you're the captain, you tell us what to do, and you know, trying to like perk her up, and but still being very like childish about it, like being like, oh, you're amazing, which is kind of something I think a child would say. And you learn as an adult that people don't necessarily just need blind praise, they need kind of understanding. Sometimes they need someone to actually appreciate why they're feeling like they're letting people down, not just trying to like give them empty kind of platitudes. But it's also what, you know, what Wim said about you being amazing is very kind of like understandable for a child to do that age. Maybe Wim should have also kind of been like, also I kind of got this in this mess, and not and maybe that would be a bit of nice self-awareness from Wim, but I guess it's also very realistic for Wim to not do that. But that was a very cute moment, and I'm like, so far in this show, there was, for the first 2 episodes, they were very kind of like conflicty to each other, which makes sense. I was like, I assume we're going to have a sense of growth, which is what you expect. And I think the rate at which they've kind of melded together as a crew versus the adversity they're facing makes sense. And I think Wim starting to actually like respect Fern in this episode is a natural progression of his character. And I like Fern being like, you know, I just don't think I can get us out of this problem, and I think, and you know, realizing that it's a bit too like unsurmountable, and yet then she figures it out, which is a nice moment because it harks back to what we see in the first episode when she was overriding her droid's instructions, and she realizes that actually what's happened here, which, you know, is a nice callback. Unfortunately, betrayal, because it turns out SF-33 does actually know more than he's saying. He doesn't remember Attin. He was just always ordered to never admit that he knew about Attin when someone asked him a question, and it turns out that he was just programmed that if anyone does work it out, he kills them. And I was saying last week, I really love the relationship between SM-33 and the kids, where SM-33 is so protective and loyal to these kids he's just mentioned, and they like showing him his loyalty back, and then he tries to kill them. And honestly, my heart is broken. The betrayal I feel is immense. I hope they all make up and make friends in the next episode, because I don't know how long I can deal with that not being the case. That was a tense ending to the episode. Nice that Neil got his heroic moment, and Jude Law got to basically tackle a droid into the It's funny. It's the way that he ran over to a droid, whacked the button, but still like dived over. Also, speaking of dives, I appreciate that daughter character just unnecessarily doing a bunch of acrobatics and slides and stuff, and I'm just like, that's exactly what I would do as a child if I was forced into war. So yeah, really, really good episode. I was grinning, I was enjoying it, I felt like a child. It's been a long time since a show generally made me feel like a child. So going strong. Look forward to where we go next time. I believe tonight is the last episode of Lower Decks. I need to do my reaction video to Wicked, but I think it's almost 2 o'clock, so I should probably go to bed. So I need to be up in 5% challenge. My new adapter, for this lens that I have, which has been attached to this Sony camera that I have that's down. This lens I have, this Sony camera, and this Sony camera has a dodgy mirror, so it's not useful for anything. It's not useful for photojournalism, which is what I want to use it for. But this lens, I hope, is fine and isn't the issue. I'm almost sure it's the body. Even if it is a lens, to be honest, it doesn't really matter. I'm getting an adapter for this lens. This lens is going to go into this camera, so I don't end up breaking this camera every time I turn it on with the weight of the teleprompter I have on it. That keeps it doesn't like it when I turn it off. Whereas this doesn't have a mechanical zoom. So I can, and so hopefully whatever I set this as, it will stay as, and I won't have to keep readjusting my zoom every time we start. Although I guess if I bump it, it might reset. But hopefully not a huge amount. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow, I hope. I don't know why I ended on that note. No one asked. Get out of my house.